Hey there, everyone. Russ Hamilton here from Keepers of Chaos. So, anyway, the other day I was getting ready to try and do a video, and I popped onto my Keepers of Chaos, and basically I said, "Hey, let's hear some ideas." And anyway, there was too many to pick from. There was just so many comments and so many good ideas. I couldn't just pick one, and Anthony and I were in a rush to get things done. But I wanted to give a shout out at least to everyone that participated in that. And then it gave me an idea for a really cool video, or at least I hope it's going to be a really cool video, where I'm just going to go down the list. I'm going to mention people, and I'm going to talk about each and every one of their little comments and try and do a little something on each one. So as I do that here, just going to start right from the top here. Okay, first of all, shout out to Robin. She knows who she is. I'm not going to mention last names here, but anyway, I've worked with her in the past. Anyway, she says here, common hiding spots for contraband in canteen items and how they make it look unopened. Look, there's a lot of things I could talk about with regards to that. Look for fake bottoms and things, whether it's in coffee, creamer, anything like that. Some of the things that have like lotions and creams in them, they actually have factory built false bottoms built in. Learn to find that little seam and go in there and break the little plastic tabs apart if you have to. Usually if they're already broken, you can kind of feel it a little bit and you can pop those off there. There'll be a false bottom in that. Look at that. Best hiding spot I ever heard about. Didn't involve any packaging at all. Someone found some black tar heroin shaped like little mouse turds and stuff. So you know what? Use your imagination. All right. I'm going to try and run through these things as quick as I can. So let's see. Let's go on down then. Robbie, situational awareness, returning to work after a major incident, and dating or not hooking up in the workplace. Hey, sometimes the heart wants what it wants, right? So anyway, people are often against that and they participate in it anyway. So, I don't have a whole lot to say on that, but I'll morph into the other part that you talked about, situational awareness, right? Situational awareness is paramount. As a matter of fact, I've got a saying that I've kind of branded some things with when I talk about it, and that is that complacency is situational awareness perceived but not achieved. And if you look around in some places like Keepers of Chaos and other places, you'll see where I've used that saying to talk about a whole host of things out there. So thanks for mentioning that, Robbie. All right, on to the next one. Getting right along here. A guide to the community standards of Facebook stories from the box. John Carosa, you're awful funny. My twin brother, who often masquerades as me on Facebook. He's in Facebook jail right now. So anyway, yeah, funny guy, John Carosa there. Yeah, I mentioned his last name. All right, AJ Small, managing stress. All right, in this day and age, of course, the job is stressful. In this day and age also, everything else usually about people's lives is stressful. You mix those two together, it can be very volatile. You know what? Learn and do your job to the best of your ability so that you enjoy your work, even if it is stressful. That'll take a lot of that off. So be very proactive in doing that. Secondly, find a hobby on the side. Whatever that is. I like messing with my GoPro camera. I like doing these videos for you guys. I also like working out. I also like hiking and a number of things like that. So you know what? Just try and be that complete person. That's my 2 cents worth on that. All right, let's see. Here we got Amberly, and she says, suicide rate, white shirts being bored, so they take it out on officers. I got topics out the ass. Well, okay. So anyway, yeah, suicide rate in corrections, terrible thing. In this case, if you guys don't know what she means by white shirts, some departments, white shirts are the supervisors. Some departments, there's no difference in the shirts. But you know what? If you aspire or have already, become a higher rank, you know what? Remember what it was like to be that officer down in the lower ranks. Try and help those people out. Give them a leg up. You're not there to destroy their career. You're here to make their career. And if they have the right mindset, they're there to make your career too. All right. Moving on. Let's go to Spencer. Officer placement and positioning in pods or dorms to maximize safety and security. There's a lot to be said about that. Unfortunately, it's a little bit too diverse and too specific with regard to all of the different facilities out there. Just be one of those things where you're thinking what the worst possible thing that can happen would be from a perspective of manning those different areas. All right, what do we call that, right? That's critical thinking skills, being able to analyze and go through all that. Don't overthink things either. Sometimes people get so caught up in one aspect, they just kind of, are blind to the fact that maybe in the end, it's really not going to matter that much. All right, so moving right along, let's go to Danny here. Report writing tips. This is one that for a long time now I've meant to really address and that I really want to actually do a series on, and I am going to get to that at some point. If I were going to tell you one thing about report writing tips, though, here's the thing. I'm going to sum it up. If you're going to hold a crucifixion, you got to bring the nails. Be detailed. Give those nails over in that report to the hearing officer, to the district attorney, or whoever else is reviewing these things, so that they can nail these guys to the wall. All right. Next, let's see. Dawn Novak. I love this one. Oops, I said your name too. But anyway, what a new CO sees compared to a seasoned CO. All right. Here's the thing: is those new COs, they don't even know what they don't see. Right. When I go in to a housing unit, a yard, or whatever, I mean, my glance is seeing all of the dynamics. I'm looking for people that are, maybe upset with other groups of people, maybe one specific person, and all of that, detailing into a whole story of what may have happened earlier, maybe not to, and what might going to be happening in the future. Again, that's what I call critical thinking skills, thinking those things through. Never stop developing that trait. All right. I can't address it all here, but I do have a couple of different videos on critical thinking skills out there that kind of more or less do address this very topic. Look for them there on YouTube on Tier Talk with Anthony Ganji. All right. Paul Simeon. Now, him and I, we had a conversation the other day about this, how the current political climate is causing some departments to abandon proven gear because it looks too tactical. And really what he's talking about there is some people were getting some, tactical vests, some outer carriers and stuff, especially to use maybe on some high-risk transports or even inside the walls maybe. And, people just play into that PC, that political correctness about, how it looks. You know what? Inmates deal with this day in and day out. They get used to that. It no longer affects them, even if it did at one point. So what's the big deal? All right. The big deal to me, of course, is the safety. All right. Are you safer wearing that stuff? Yes. And for you people who don't know anything about the dynamics of violent encounters, don't tell me about how, it just causes the inmate to be able to try and hit the more vulnerable areas. No, that's even if it were true, it means that you have less vulnerable areas to have to defend, and that you can do it for a longer amount of time while responding staff get to your ass and bail you out. So, all right, there's, people want to try and, make excuses for their department, or if they're further up in the department, they want to make excuses for how stupidly their department is viewing these things. All right, perhaps more on that in another video. We'll see. Let's see. Cody here says how to address understaffing and unsafe work environment when your county commissioners refuse to fund proper staffing levels. Look, they should always be funding good, safe, proper staffing levels. What the exact answer is, I don't know. If I were going to push it, though, I would tend to say that, we need the inmates out of their cells and out to the yards for smaller period of times. Now, if that means one single 12-hour block during the day so that we can shut it down and put it on that graveyard shift as soon as possible, so that we have fewer staff that are on the graveyard shift and more that are maybe on that one shift on the fore end, assuming we're talking about 12-hour shifts here, that's the way I would do it. Unfortunately, a lot of places, they break it down into 3 8-hour shifts or 8.5 or whatever they're trying to do. But I would rather front and load and have more staff on the busy shift when inmates are out, that you face the most possible amount of danger. All right, getting on to the next one. Here we are. Tyler, shakedown tips from body parts to bed searches. Always good knowledge to know. Yes, indeed it is. I will try and put some additional links along with this particular video where I talk specifically about that. I have a very long article that I did on finding contraband and why I think it's not so important about, what it is that you're searching, but why you're looking there and what brought your attention to that general area, not specific. People all the time, they want to hear, well, where should I look? And, you can be very specific about that, but it doesn't do any good if the contraband's not there at the moment. You guys will see what I mean if you follow that link that I'm going to include to see that article that I did. And maybe I might include some links to some videos that I did as well. See, Victoria says, how to help shape a rookie into a better CO at the beginning of their career. All right, a couple weeks ago, you guys might have caught it. I went off on a tangent about some guy, we'll call him Steve, who was in one of the forums I was visiting and talking to people. You should just quit, because this individual was having a little bit of a tough time. Really? Is that where we want to be in corrections? Just telling people to quit? Everyone wants to quit this at some point. But you go on and you persevere through it and you become a good officer. You get where you like what you do because you're good at it and you've taught yourself or you've had some good training and you've gone on to really make something of yourself. We don't just leave those individuals behind. Yes, some people don't belong in this particular field. However, we don't know until we bring them along, until we establish that they aren't good for this field and they need to make some other choice. But until then, we need to bring them along. We need to train them. We need to give them the support they need because you never know which one of those people is going to go from, maybe he's cutting it, maybe not, to being, a true star in corrections. All right. Enough said on that. Let's see. I just got a couple of wows here from Anthony because there's some things that we're definitely going to address in some longer videos here. Let's see. The difficulty of being an administrator and a line CO at the same time. Well, this comes from a buddy of mine, Jim Carpenter, because he is a line CO and the administrator all at the same time because he runs a itsy-bitsy jail there. And so he's a guy that, he has to probably, switch the hat he's wearing about every 2.5 seconds while he's walking through there. So that's kind of a very specific video. I think maybe Jim Carpenter himself needs to do a video on that, and I'll post it from my account if he wants to go there. Let's see. Tony I. The overcrowding in jails and the governor's refusal to open reception centers to process them, so counties are mass releasing people. Okay, I'm going to attack that just a little bit. Yeah, that's what they're doing. They are using Corona as an excuse. Now, there might be some actual justified reasons for releasing some people during that, but not every single inmate. And there's no reason to endanger the public over it. What we've seen even at places, and yes, I'll say this out loud, I believe that the California Department of Corrections, for instance, has been essentially assaulted by Governor Newsom here, who decided purposefully, I believe, to release the coronavirus within San Quentin prison where they had absolutely zero cases, right? Until they started seeding it with people that were infected. And then I think they jumped up to over 1,000 cases. I think they finally got that under control. But, he has a problem with the death penalty, right? For people that have, raped and killed and mutilated and shot law enforcement officers and every other thing. But you know what? Hey, what's a few dead inmates when you can, cause the entire system to bleed out large numbers of those individuals and then have to pay less to your department? All right. He's a crook. He's a thief. He's a murderer. You know what? Whether you like it or not, even inmates do have rights. Okay. So I've said that about our illustrious governor here, him. Okay. So moving on beyond that. This one's kind of the same thing. Mr. Andrew here, who I also happen to know, State of California shutting down DVI, that's Dual Vocational Institute there in Tracy, California, and plans to close more. Yeah, it's all part and parcel of that same thing that I just said. Dave Bull here, Army of One in a hot situation. Yeah, I've been that Army of One in too many situations that I care to think about where I just had to wait until help got there. One particular instance, wrestling over my arm in a food court, that was good times. Some permanent damage, some permanent nerve damage there. But you know what? No matter if you get your teeth knocked in and you have to swallow, keep on fighting. Whatever it takes, man. Make it through the end of your shift. Forget all about, whatever you're supposedly can or can't do any use of force. Go home that night. All right. We got Dan here. Russ Hamilton, what about wrist lock, gooseneck, basic refresher course on self-defense? No department does enough of this in my estimation. My old department, California Department of Corrections, which I think is the best out there, did probably less than most. But that being said, I'm hoping to be able to address this in the future. You know what? I'm trying to make Keepers of Chaos up and coming. To a point at which maybe I can afford to do some of these things and bring you guys the best. Right now, due to some personal situations, I'm also having to work full time, even though I'm retired. But I do want to bring you guys these things, and that is an eventuality, I promise you. Let's see. Tronny, address the problem of indecent exposure and the problem women face when forced to do suicide watch on these perverts. All right, that's really a great thing. I actually will do a video on this very soon. Too many places just think that, they should just put up with it. That's just part and parcel of it. No, it's not. You know what? Hold these guys accountable. Every time they do that, make the sanctions hurt. File charges on the outside of them. And you know what? Eventually, some of them you can, turn and, make it where they're not going to do that anymore. Some of the more hardcore ones that are truly mentally screwed up, it's not going to matter anyway because they deserve to stay inside for a lifetime because they're going to present an ongoing threat to public safety anyway. But there's no reason that anyone should put up with this, whether you're female or male. You know what? Hold these guys to account, charge them, get to know your district attorney, try and get him on board with this and go to town. All right, let's see. Let's go on to Mark Friedman here. Yes, check out Dumpster Fire. That's FYRE, and what that convict has been doing from his cell. Hey, you guys check that out. I'm not sure what it's about. We had a guy, what was his name? Jaron Combs, that was doing this cooking show from his prison cell in Centinela. Yeah, I ratted that creep out. So anyway, let's see. Let's go on here. Megan says, working in a county facility, it's common to see people we know, families, neighbors, sometimes even friends. Yes, it's much more difficult. You know what? State corrections is a lot less personalized because a lot of times what you have is you have people coming from reception centers to places that they've never been. And so your family is really never there, so to speak. The ones that, the black sheep of your family, right? So I would just say, you know what? In all things that you do in corrections, stay perfectly professional. And that'll bleed over into this situation too, where whatever it takes, if you have to put that person in a different unit, so be it. If they have to ship that person out, to some other county, I've seen that done before. We've had situations crop up when I've been involved in some of the county things that I've been in. So just, keep in mind, there's a workaround that you can do, but if you try and be that consummate professional, hopefully you won't have to take it that far. But hey, we're all human. So there's no automaton robots running about in corrections that I know. Let's see, let's go to Rob here. How about working in a juvenile facility? That presents special challenges. Rob, you're dead on. I did 27 years in adult corrections with California Department of Corrections. I retired. And then I went to work for a brand new, not just a facility, but a brand new department. And it was a small department, but you know what? My hat comes off to those that work in juvenile. There are some things that you can do to salvage a certain percentage of that population. I'll just say it straight out. And it's worth the effort and it's worth the time to do that. The other part with the unsalvageable ones, we still have to keep them from preying on the public, and that's why they're there. Maybe we can't salvage them all the way, maybe part of the way where they're not so bad when they do get released. But I'll tell you what, we need more people that are dedicated in that part of the profession. In the adult part, we didn't really have to worry about that so much. We were there just safety and security, 24/365, right? Okay, moving on. Seth says, the nobody shook him down video and the importance of thorough pat searches. Do the same thing every time, people. And if you haven't seen that video, you can look it up. I don't know that I'll be able to find it again, but I know exactly what he's talking about. Guy comes into a situation where they're putting him in a room where they're about to interrogate him, and he sits down. They ask him if he wants some water. He says, sure, I'll take some water. And then he chugs the water down. As the guy walks out of the room, he pulls a Colt 45 out of his waistband and then caps himself. Thankfully, he caps himself, because that could have been all bad for those particular individuals, right? They had to have had some pretext for getting him there. Maybe they didn't want to scare him too much and make him think that he didn't have to leave, so maybe they didn't have to read him his Miranda rights. I'm not really sure on that. If you know about Miranda, it's all about, whether or not you're in custody and have the power to leave or not, and whether you're being interrogated. So maybe they were trying to scoot by on that. Turned out really bad for them. If they'd shooken him down, they would have found that 45, no doubt, because that's a huge, huge gun. All right, let's see. Robert, when an officer has to go to court, what to do and not to do. I'll keep it pretty simple here. I can do a whole video on this, though. Basically, wait. Someone asks you a question, give the district attorney a chance to object. Or if you're being asked a question by the district attorney, the other guy, give him the chance to object to. Don't answer any more than you're asked for. If they ask you to clarify, fine. Don't get mad, because here's what's going to happen, right? Essentially, you've got direct examination and you've got cross-examination, right? So after you go through your direct, and after they put you on cross and they try and tell you what a piece of shit you are, right? It's going to come back, and the district attorney is going to have a chance to do what they call rehabilitate you and address all of the lies, right? All of the lies, blah, blah, blah. God. I guess I got to stitch these videos together. But anyway, last thing I was saying was address all of the lies and all of the bad crap that the worthless piece of shit public defender was trying to say about you. So anyway, I hope this thing continues videoing. It says I got 5 minutes and 13 seconds left, so I'm going to try and fit all these in. Julie says, when I was a captain on the 3-yard, I sat out in front and watched as a few fellows we knew who were dealing and coming back from a visit. I called a brand new cop over and explained to him what was going on and told him to follow the handshakes and he'd get a good bust. Well, he did catch them, but then he wrote his report to say Captain Rollins told me to, and the entire bust. Hey, wise up. If you got to say it on the stand, it's one thing. In your report, though, it doesn't necessarily have to go there yet. Eventually, there is this thing called discovery, though, that they'll get to. But 9 times out of 10, discovery doesn't matter, because most of the time, they're going to end up taking the plea. I'll just be honest there, man. I've had so many cases, and the one I got closest to actually going on, he cut a deal at the last second, but I was in court anyway. So anyway, John, a former supervisor of mine, says quack, quack. Don't know what that's about. Andrew says it's fell in love, not fell in love. Yeah, come on, people. I mean, the human beast is what it is, but that doesn't mean that we, have to put ourselves in jeopardy by thinking that some inmate is all that. Monica says women in corrections compared to men in corrections. Yeah, women get messed with a whole lot more. That's a whole other video in and of itself. I think Anthony might have just done something on that. I could give my perspective on it, but it's probably not as valid as maybe I need to get Robin or someone like that here on the show. We'll see. Let's see. Barbara, what she says, says that she was undermined by some male partners. Don't do that, man. Bolster people up, right? Whether you think they're doing the right thing or the not so right thing, you know what? Bring them up with you. You don't look any better by condescending and slapping them down. You really don't. We want to bring people up. Danny Miller, use of force. I've done a lot of stuff on use of force, and there will be more in the future. Trust me. Carrie Corbin, the difference between what you learn at the academy and what the job actually entails. Okay, I'll make this pretty simple. What the job actually entails is this, is that you fall back and you start using the experience of other people, the experience of yourself on the foundation that the academy gave you. That foundation that the academy gave you is to give you a framework to stay professional in. Otherwise, we'd go out there and we'd do any old thing and we'd end up in jail or prison ourselves or get fired, right? So use the two together, right? Academy is the foundation and the experience of yourself and other people for running the ops that you're going to do to make your facility more safe, more secure. All right, coming up on the last one here, Tim, policies and procedures on cellular watches worn by COs. I received a removal charge for mistakenly wearing the watch one time with no other incidents in my career. Okay, yeah, somebody could make that mistake. I think that we just have to be cognizant of what we're bringing in, what we're bringing out. And, you should, on something like that, I don't know. People sometimes tend to be a little too paranoid, but at the same time, you have that paranoia for a reason. They should have done an investigation and left you off with just a little slap on the wrist. Instead of something more severe. That's my part of it. But after that, you should know better, right? Shame, shame, shame. So anyway, that's all I think I've got for you guys. Check out the other videos that I'm going to list along with this one. I got to kind of, stitch this one together when we stopped recording there for a minute. But anyway, every one of you, stay safe, stay aware. Until next time.